to the August 5th, 2021 meeting of the Tinley Park Plan Commission. Can I have a motion for the regular meeting to be called to order?
I make a motion.
So moved.
Okay, and next we will stand and take the pledge. Do the pledge together.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Lori, would you please do roll call?
Yes. Commissioner Gaskell.
Present.
Commissioner Gatto.
Present.
Commissioner Lusciuto. Commissioner Manny.
Present.
Commissioner Maniatis.
Present.
Commissioner Shaw. Commissioner Vargas. Commissioner West.
Present.
Chairman Gray. That concludes the roll.
Quick question, do we need to do anything specific to swear me in as acting chair?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I don't think we've done that.
I thought we had to do that last time. Okay, staff, do we have any communications for the group?
I can answer any questions more at the go to the order, but the board did combine the Plan Commission and the Zoning Board of Appeals, so I think you guys will be the Planning and Zoning Commission likely going forward. For the most part, it's going to be a lot of the same stuff. There's going to be some kind of newer stuff that the ZBA did, though. There's fence variations, sign variations, so you might get a few more cases like that. But generally, it's stuff Plan Commission's already seen in some capacity. And many of you were either on ZBA or paid attention to those as well. So,
Can I ask why they combined the two?
it was for efficiency purposes. So ZBA had very few meetings, and when they had meetings, it was the average was one agenda item. So we'd hold entire meetings for one fence variation. So efficiency purposes, it takes a lot of time to set up meetings, packets, notices. This will be a little more efficient for staff, and then also just to run the meetings, to get a group here consistently.
So then how are you handling plan commission stuff and zoning board schedule-wise?
They'll be just on the same schedules, so it's already kind of happening, but they'll just be on the same schedules. They won't be
We're gonna start
like
at 7 and then we end at what, you know?
Typically, there's been 10 o'clock's usually a limit for any meeting. So, and eventually, if there's too many agenda items on a meeting, it's full,
Right,
right?
has to
So
be
we
pushed
usually
in.
stop it at a certain point. But the chair, typically, it's been an informal kind of stop date of 10 o'clock with, if we're finishing something up, obviously, it might go a little over. But- So it shouldn't mean massive agendas or anything, but it might mean no cancellations of meetings, right? So where we canceled a few before, all 24 meetings might happen now. So
Great, thank you.
that's it. Yep.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the July 15th, 2021 regular meeting?
So moved.
Second.
First motion by Commissioner Gatto, second by Commissioner Manny. Any opposed? Hearing none. Item number 1 on our agenda is the public hearing, Allure Wellness Center at 7151 183rd Street. Special use for a dwelling above a principal use, parking variation, and site plan architectural approval. Can I have a motion to open the public hearing?
Make a motion.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Gaskell, seconded by Commissioner Gatto. Staff, do you have a presentation?
Yeah, did you open the public hearing? Right?
We motioned.
Okay, and took a vote?
Oh, I'm sorry.
The voice vote?
Yeah, any disapprovals? Hearing none? Thank you.
Yeah.
So for tonight's consideration, we have the public hearing for 7151 183rd Street for the proposed Allure Wellness Center. The petitioner is Jason Terry and Dr. Tony Scott Terry, requesting a special use for a dwelling located above the principal structure above principal use, commercial use, a parking variation, and site plan architectural approval. Here is an image of one of the entry points to the site. You can see a porte cochere in the front, and here is an aerial showing the extent of the site. Just a very quick history as we discussed this in last meeting's workshop. I'll try to be brief. In the early 70s, this was part of the Cook County jurisdiction. It became Hirsch Memorial, was annexed in 1985, and then became Heartland Memorial Center, closed in 2017, and has been vacant since. It is located in the B3 zoning district. The map reflects it being part of a PUD, but it is not. So it is just B3 zoning. Previous approvals. And previously, there was a special use issued for an apartment while it was a funeral home. In 2005, there was a building addition, which you can see on the left, and a landscaping plan was also approved in 2005. Here's the landscaping plan. And one thing to note, since being vacant, the site is deteriorated due to lack of maintenance. Some of the landscaping, as we've seen before, has become a bit overgrown. So for the proposed use, the petitioner has multiple proposed uses, a number of businesses which will be by appointment only, as well as the apartment on the second floor. And so this information is the same as we discussed at the workshop before. Just to reiterate that with residential units that are above or to the rear of a principal commercial structure, they require the special use permit of approval. Typically, this aligns with our current planning development trends towards mixed-use properties. You can see an image of the layout of the apartment. It's going to be remodeled. Apartment is a little over 1,200 square feet. The most relevant remodeling feature that is being proposed is that the deck was removed, and they're proposing a much smaller deck on the west side. You can see there in the lower left corner. So as in the staff report, any new information or changed information from the workshop is identified in red. So at the previous meeting, there was discussion on the two entrances. The west at the time was shown as separate with a vestibule that consisted of an exterior door as well as an interior door to the business, and then the stairway entry to the apartment. The east did not. The east had a treatment room there. So the petitioner has changed the space, removing that eastern treatment room space to become a vestibule. And also, the petitioner has noted that she will, on the interior business doors, install a two-way lock in which the petitioner will be the holder of that key. Also, incorporating feedback from the Plan Commission workshop, 2 parking spaces have been identified will be identified with signage for the apartment's use. And here's a site plan, and it's a little hard to see, but the parking is tentatively proposed close to the western entry for the apartment. Some of the other factors of the site, I'll just try to quickly go over it. In red, you can see the flow of the traffic. There's cross-access towards the southeast part of the site. 183rd is along the north. There are 2 curb cuts to 183rd, one of which is one-way only in, and it flows underneath the north porte cochere, which I've noted in red as well. And then the eastern curb cut is bidirectional. So, as part of the proposal, if you recall, the garage is being converted to a fitness center, and that will have 2 sets of new overhead doors. There'll be walkways with foundational landscaping area. Landscaping will be updated. And there are new condenser units towards the south of the site. The petitioner has added 3 stalls, raising the count from 73 to 76. No lighting changes were proposed. So in this site plan, the new condenser units, which were not completely screened at the workshop, have been screened. The applicant has noted that there will be likely Hicks hues or some sort of similar arbor vitae. The condenser units will only be 3 feet tall, and those plantings will be in excess of that, of at least 4 feet. Okay. And so this is the basics about the architecture, I'm sorry, the landscaping. So, as I've mentioned with some of the screening, also the petitioner's landscaper identified on the site, 2 trees are appearing to be dead or dying, and they will prepare an updated landscaping plan for staff to review. This will, as also noted on the slide, staff will recommend a condition to clarify the compliance with that plan to the previously approved landscape plan. Also noted on here, there is a low boulder wall towards the front of the site facing 183rd. It's just a few boulders, not very tall. When the landscaper evaluated the site, he noted that is actually a non-functioning water feature. So if possible, the petitioner would like to reactivate that. Here is a few images which you saw last time on the architecture. It's a very simple brick structure with deep overhangs, stone supports for 2 porte cocheres. On the north, porte cocheres, a storefront glazing system. As noted before, that apartment is set back, so it's not right up against 183rd. And furthermore, so on the architecture, the overhead doors, this is an image provided by the vendor, the applicant. The petitioner is currently working with Haas Doors. The proposal is for 2 16 by 8 foot overhead doors of 4 sections and 4 panels, similar to what you see there, colored brown with aluminum extrusions. And then, as I noted before about the screening for the mechanical condenser units, that's been addressed. And lastly, in regards to these exterior features, staff will recommend a condition that staff review and approve the doors and the exterior changes to the site. And here's a summary of these changes that we've discussed. The only other thing to note is that the trash gate, the petitioner noted that it will be repaired and not replaced. And then for signage, so as we noted, this is a multi-tenant situation in what was designed as a single-tenant building. And the petitioner is agreeing with staff that the ideal branding for the building's concept, is a single Allure Wellness Center, will help identify the site. I've noted here what the requirements would be for wall and ground sign. And there is an existing ground sign, as you can see in the image. Face replacement, which means no structural support changes, would be permitted on this ground sign, which does not meet the minimum 10-foot setback. So that is one option. Ultimately, the applicant, the petitioner, could either comply with code or come back with a potential variation in the future. So there is a slight update to the parking since the workshop. So as we noted before, Section 8 in the zoning code breaks down the parking requirements by types of use. So medical office, if you recall, is broken down by how many treatment rooms there are. So due to the loss of 1 treatment room, the required number of parking spaces is now only 85. So this in turn reduces the shortage, which in the workshop was previously 11, is now only a shortage of 9. Also, I wanted to note that the petitioner is working with the architect on the site plans that will make sure that ADA signs are designated and repaired, and as previously noted, in regards to the special use permit, the 2 apartment spaces will be designated as well. And so this concludes the staff presentation. I'll have the standards ready when you'd like to review them, and the petitioner is also here. Thank you.
Okay, my apologies, it may be out of order, but I did neglect to mention that the notice of the public hearing was published in accordance with the relevant laws. So next, do we open it up for, do we do the standards or open it up for questions and comments?
You could open it up for questions and comments for staff, and then if you also want, if you have anything to ask the petitioner, she can come up and you can swear her in.
Okay, thank you. Commission, do you have any questions for staff?
No comments.
No comment.
No comment.
Okay. Do you need to review the standards now?
Yeah, did you want to say anything?
Oh,
Yeah,
sounds like no, there aren't any.
yeah. If not, we're okay. Oh, yeah, we can just review the standards then?
Okay,
Or you'll need to, close the public hearing,
okay,
and then we can review the standards.
thank you. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Gatto, seconded by Commissioner Gaskell. Staff, could you please review the standards for special use?
Thank you. On the screen here are the first of the 3 standards, and so I will go through these. So standard A, establishment, maintenance, or operation of the special use will not be detrimental or endanger the public health, safety, morals, comfort, or general welfare. Staff response, the apartment is already existing as a 2nd floor unit on the building and will not be detrimental or endanger the public. B, it will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purposes already permitted, nor substantially diminish and impair property values within the neighborhood. Staff response, the apartment is already existing as a 2nd floor unit on the building will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other properties in the vicinity. The proposed commercial uses are compatible with the residential unit. C, will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding property for uses permitted in the district. Staff response, the existing use of the apartment will not impede on the normal and orderly development in the surrounding area. The uses are compatible with one another and neighboring uses. D, adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and/or other necessary facilities have been or are being provided. Response, adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and other necessary facilities are existing without any changes required. E, discusses providing ingress and egress designed as to minimize traffic congestion in public streets. Response, adequate measures have been provided for ingress and egress and minimization of traffic congestion. The apartment will have separate entrances and will have 2 designated parking spaces. F, this relates to basically complying with all other provisions of code. Staff response, the apartment will comply with all of the regulations of the village code. And lastly, G, the extent to which a special use contributes directly or indirectly to the economic development of the community as a whole. Response, the apartment will contribute to the vitality of a commercial use on the property as compared to a standalone commercial use. The overall economic development of the community is improved by filling a currently vacant building and adding employment. Those were for the special use. There are also standards for variation. So there are 3 that I will go over here now. So the first one, the property in question cannot yield a reasonable return if permitted to be used only under the conditions allowed by the regulations in the district in which it's located. Staff response, if parking met code, and this is, to clarify, this is for the parking variation specifically. So if parking met code, the petitioner would not be able to operate the uses She is proposing or redevelop the property to a viable use. The parking needs to be associated with this parking variation and will be managed by the petitioner through scheduling of business hours and visits by appointment only. Number 2, the plight of the owner is due to unique circumstances. Response: the property's site configuration of parking is existing and does not have the ability to expand parking on site due to the existing building structure and landscaping requirements. The proposed mix of businesses and uses provides flexibility with the parking availability. Businesses take clients by appointment only. Number 3, the variation, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the locality. Staff response: the parking lot configuration is not changing except for the addition of 3 spaces in place of the drive aisle pavement near the existing garage. This parking addition is located behind the building. The essential character of the locality will not change and thus will not detract from the overall area. And this is the 4th standard for variation. And then following this is a summary of standards for site plan architectural approval. And that concludes the standards from staff.
Thank you. Can I have somebody read the recommended motion number 1?
I'd like to make a motion to recommend that the village board grant Jason Terry and Tony Scott Terry, property owners, a special use for a dwelling located above a principal commercial use at 7151 183rd Street in the B3 General Business and Commercial Zoning District in accordance with the plans submitted and adopted findings of fact as proposed by the village staff in the August 5th, 2021 staff report.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Lori, can you take roll call?
Take it. Commissioner Gaskell,
Yes.
Commissioner Gatto,
Yes.
Commissioner Manny,
Yes.
Commissioner Mattiatis,
Yes.
Chairperson West.
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you. Are we ready to move on to item number 2?
Yep. Second motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Or
Motion, can I have somebody read the recommended motion number 2?
I make a motion to recommend that the village board grant Jason Terry and Tony Scott Terry, property owners, a parking variation for 9 parking spaces to permit a total of 76 parking spaces where 85 are required at 7151 183rd Street in the B3 General Business and Commercial Zoning District, in accordance with the plan submitted and adopt findings of fact as proposed by village staff in the August 5th, 2021 staff report, subject to the condition that parking demand is monitored by the property owner and all parking is accommodated on site.
Second that motion.
Thank you. Staff, can I have a roll call?
Commissioner Gaskell,
Yes.
Commissioner Gatto,
Yes.
Commissioner Manny,
Yes.
Commissioner Mattiatis,
Yes.
and Chairperson West.
Yes. Can I have somebody please read the recommended motion number 3?
I'd like to make a motion to grant Jason Terry and Tony Scott Terry, property owners, site plan and architectural approval at 7151 183rd Street in the B3 General Business and Commercial Zoning District in accordance with the plans submitted and adopt findings of fact as proposed by the village staff in the August 5th, 2021 staff report and subject to the following conditions. 1, approval is subject to final engineering review and approval by the village engineer. 2, approval is subject to staff review of the overhead door and exterior design remaining in substantial compliance with the existing building and architectural standards. 3, approval is subject to compliance with the previously approved landscape plan prior to building occupancy. Landscaping in new areas near the fitness center expansion shall be subject to staff review and approval.
I second.
Motion by Commissioner Gatto, seconded by Commissioner Gaskell. Staff, can I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Gaskell,
Yes.
Commissioner Gatto,
Yes.
Commissioner Manny,
Yes.
Commissioner Mattiatis.
Yes.
Did I skip someone?
Me.
No. What's it?
Me.
Chairperson West?
Yes.
Sorry.
Motion carries. Okay, thank you, everyone. The project is scheduled for the August 17th, 2021 Village Board meeting.
And Lori can follow back up with you about how to attend that. And it should just be that one meeting then.
Okay, great. Now we can move on to item
Good luck.
number 2. My apologies. Okay, item number 2 on our agenda, public hearing on Local 1 Even Hotel, 18501 Convention Center Drive, special use for a substantial deviation. I have the notice here that the public hearing was advertised in accordance with the relevant laws. Staff, do you have a presentation?
Yes.
If you want to open the.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Open the public.
I'm sorry. Can I have a motion to open the public
I
hearing?
make a motion.
I second that motion.
Motion by Commissioner Gaskell, seconded by Commissioner Gatto. Any opposed? Hearing none. Staff, would you like to make your report?
So this is a public hearing for Local 1 Even Hotel at 18501 Convention Center Drive for a projecting sign, a blade sign. So this is an image of the property in question. So the hotel, as you can see, there's a 6-story building formerly known as the Holiday Inn. Now it's the Even Hotel. And in the foreground, which is the north end of the building, is the single-story restaurant space, which formerly was Bananas Bar and Grill, and now is Local 1 Gastropub Restaurant. So here's an aerial of the site. It is nearly 5 acres, 4.8 acres to be specific. It's at the northeast corner of the interchange of I-80 in Harlem. As everyone is well aware, this is an intense highway-oriented use. The building itself, which consists of the restaurant and hotel, is oriented to the west, but it's to the east of the parcel, and the access to the site is not on Harlem, but in fact on Convention Center Drive, which is access to the north from 183rd Street. So you can see also on the aerial that to the northeast of that is connected to it is the Tinley Park Convention Center. And just for some context, you can see there's the LA Fitness Gym up to the north and some residential, which is not directly accessible to the east. Excuse me. So this is the zoning map, which shows that, you know, it is within the B3 zoning district. It's also part of the Holiday Inn and Convention Center PUD, which was established in 1998. As far as zoning context, you can see it's surrounded by additional B3, and the residential that I noted is R5, is further to the east. And for more history on the site, in 2000, there was an approval specifically related to signage for a total of 7 signs. 6 of them were wall signs, and 3 of those 6 were for the restaurant. So that is the ordinance which previously permitted the wall sign for the facade that we're discussing this evening. Additional history in 2010, there was an expansion for the property, and in 2020, there was a major remodeling for the hotel and restaurant as it was converted from a Holiday Inn to the Even Hotel. And, sorry. Excuse me. And in February of 2021, Local 1 opened up with a soft opening. So for Local 1, there currently is no wall signage in place. There is a freestanding sign with an electronic message center, which is intended for highway traffic along Harlem. But that is a rotating message, and it's only intermittent that advertising for Local 1 comes up. Otherwise, it's for convention center events. And it's advertising for motorists on Harlem Avenue. Excuse me. So this request is categorized as a substantial deviation. It is specifically relating to the fact that it's a PUD. In order to point out the nature of the request of the relief, we have to go into the definitions of what is a projecting sign. Projecting sign is similar to saying blade sign, right? So the zoning code defines a projecting sign as a sign other than a wall sign which projects usually perpendicularly from and is supported by a wall of a building or a structure. The zoning code also notes that no wall sign shall project into the public right-of-way or extend more than 12 inches outward from the face of the building. So, with this in respect, you don't see projecting signs much in the village, with the exception of the Legacy District, where they would be permitted. They're typically in pedestrian-oriented areas, and this is an auto-oriented area. Okay, so with the nature of the request specifically is to request relief from that section of code to be more than 1 foot from the facade of the building. And again, this is an exception as part of a deviation. Exceptions are most specifically, they're not so much addressed in terms of findings of fact, but they're looked at more in terms of the overall PUDs and design and overall goals. So for the signage that's proposed, you can see here that in the packet, you'll notice that the petitioner showed 2 signs. One of those signs is not for consideration tonight. It is a by right sign. It is also the same style and shape, but it is proposed to be mounted directly on the facade of the building on the north wall. The sign that requires the relief is proposed to be mounted perpendicularly from the windowless dormer on the west facade. So, specifically with that, it requires the substantial deviation. The petitioner has submitted the drawings, as you saw in the packet, but will require the architectural engineering stamped design drawings to be submitted in order to be approved. And that is just to confirm the structural integrity to both the building facade and the sign. So the petitioner has provided a few photos of what the sign would ultimately look like. Importantly, the sign is not proposed to go into the right-of-way. Beyond the posting of the packet, the petitioner did provide some dimensions which may further help understand the context of the site. You can see the wall to the sidewalk, the depth of the landscaping bed is less than 9 feet. And you can see the windowless dormer is slightly set back from the sloped roof line. A sign would be an oval shaped, double-sided, internally illuminated, and basically it is designed to try to attract the pedestrians as they travel north and south along the sidewalk, entering or leaving the hotel. The proposal is oriented that way because it's not just the traffic, but also there's a tree in front of it, and the tree would ordinarily obscure a typical standard mounted wall sign. So that concludes the staff presentation. I'll have the standards ready to present when you're ready.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions or comments on the staff report?
I just have a question, can you go back to that last slide?
Yes.
Since I wasn't at the last meeting. So the sign isn't gonna come over the sidewalk, right, by that I'm showing, right?
Yes.
It's gonna come like, what, 1.5 feet from the sidewalk, right? Is that correct?
We don't have the exact measurement of how far it would be from the sidewalk. The petitioner is proposing to mount it on the facade of the windowless dormer,
Okay.
which is slightly, as you can see in the lower left photo, it is slightly set back
Mhm.
from the wall.
Mhm.
And for the wall itself to the sidewalk is already 8.5 feet. The petitioner originally proposed the sign to be only 96 inches, excluding bracket, but is considering a slightly smaller option.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for clarifying.
Do we have any other questions or comments for staff?
No comment.
Nothing.
Okay, thank you. Hearing that, staff, would you like to present the standards
I-
for
Do you
deviation?
want to say anything? The petitioner's
Oh,
here
my
if you have
apologies.
questions, but
Hello.
Thank you for having me this evening. I just want to thank Dan and Lloyd for all their help and patience with me in this process. And, you know, we're trying to put the finishing touches on the project that, you know, through COVID was a little longer than we thought renovating the hotel. And this would be one of the last pieces to get it all complete.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll just say, it's kind of rare for situations where we'd have kind of these blade signs, like Lori said. This is just a unique, it's obviously a unique situation. Rarely do we have somewhere where you have a lot of your traffic driving in. You don't have good visibility from the roadways around it. It's a different situation here than the rest of the village. But as we try and get more pedestrian friendly, maybe this is something we look into going forward. It could work in some shopping centers and things like that that we're trying to convert. So,
Yeah.
it's something that just came up from a staff perspective of, this is the first time it came up, but kind of begs some questions of, this isn't bad, right? It could be a good thing.
That's why we have
Something
special
we might-
uses.
Something we might revisit, in the future.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we haven't, in the 4 years I've been on the planning commission, I haven't seen a sign like this yet come in front of us, so. But
Yeah.
it's a great idea, so.
Okay. Staff, would you review the standards for a special use, please?
Yes, on the screen, so you can see the standards, beginning with standard A, that the establishment, maintenance, or operation of a special use will not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, morals, comfort, or general welfare. Staff response: the projected blade sign is visible only to commercial-related traffic and not to residential neighborhoods. The sign's orientation helps better identify the restaurant business to persons visiting the convention center or staying at the hotel. B, the special use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of the property in vicinity, immediate vicinity, for the purposes already permitted, nor substantially diminish and impair the property values within the neighborhood. Staff response: the projected blade sign is minimal in size and visibility to surrounding properties. The sign is most proximate to the convention center, hotel, and parking lot, and all other properties around the site are commercial developments. And then the following ones, C, will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of the surrounding property for uses permitted in the district. Staff response: the property within this area is already developed for commercial purposes. D, adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and other necessary facilities have been or are being provided. Staff response: the electric utilities are already in place from the previously existing wall sign at that location. The sign will not require additional utility installation. E, adequate measures have been taken to provide ingress and egress so designed as to minimize traffic congestion in the public streets. Staff response: the projecting blade sign is located on a building away from public streets. The sign will not impact or change the function of access to the site. And then the remaining two are up on screen. F.
You
This-
don't have to read it.
Yeah, it's
It's
basically
on the
what's-
screen. You can
yeah.
just
It-
read the responses
show-
if you want.
Okay, the special use conforms to all other applicable regulations of the planned unit development and villages ordinances and codes. G, extent to which the special use contributes indirectly or directly to the economic development of the community as a whole. Response: the proposed projected blade sign will help identify the restaurant business to persons visiting the convention center or staying at the hotel. The projected blade sign will be visible from the sidewalk in front of the restaurant and near the hotel, as well as the parking lot area serving the convention center. The increased business identification will contribute to the economic development of the community as a whole.
Could you close the public hearing?
No.
Okay.
Can I please have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Gaskell, seconded by Commissioner Manny. I'm sorry, can we go, don't we have to go back?
Yeah.
To take a vote on it? On the slides?
Oh, yes, yeah.
Can I have somebody please read the recommended motion?
Recommended motion, special use substantial deviation. Make a motion to recommend that the village board grant the petitioner, Daniel Fitzgerald, on behalf of Even Hotel, Tinley Park Convention Center, a special use permit for a substantial deviation from the convention center, Holiday Inn, but with an exception from the zoning ordinance to permit one projecting wall sign to extend up to 9 feet from the building facade instead of the maximum 1 foot at 18501 Convention Center Drive in the B3 PD zoning district, in accordance with the plan submitted, and adopt findings of the fact as proposed by village staff in the August 5th, 2021 staff report.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Mandietis, seconded by Commissioner Gatto. Staff, can I please have a roll call?
Commissioner Gaskell,
Yes.
Commissioner Gatto,
Yes.
Commissioner Manny,
Yes.
Commissioner Manny-Addis,
Yes.
Chairperson West.
Yes. Is there a second motion on this one? Just the one? No?
No.
Okay. Okay, hearing that, motion passes. And with that, we'll move on to item number 3. I'm sorry, the project is scheduled for the August 17th, 2021 Village Board meeting.
And we'll follow up.
Thank you for joining us, sir.
On that.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Okay, on to item number 3, a workshop on Smoothie King at 6801 159th Street. The variations in site plan and architectural approval. Staff, do we have a report?
Thanks. Yeah, so this is a workshop for Smoothie King, who is looking to redevelop the old Brown's Chicken, which is on 159th and Oak Park Avenue, not too far from here. So I think most people are driven past that over the years, and it's kind of slowly deteriorated, aged. I think it's all past its day. So what we're working towards, or the petitioner is working towards, is demolishing that building. They'd be reusing the foundation of the building, so it'd still have the same general footprint, but then redeveloping, obviously building a new building in its place. So just reusing the foundation there. The site is, again, on the southwest corner of 159th Street and Oak Park Avenue. This site was originally developed in Cook County. It actually goes back pretty far. It's kind of hard to tell exactly when this building went in there, but it goes back to kind of the 40s or the 50s. There's a farm out here. It was at one point a gas station on that corner before being converted to the Brown's Chicken. So the site got annexed in 1968 and has a gas station at that point. Along with kind of the surrounding area, which was annexed at the same time, and that was developed as part of the Brementown Mall in that commercial district in the early to mid-70s out there. So the site's been around for a while, and if you can kind of see, it's a smaller site. It's obviously a hard corner of a busier intersection, so it kind of dates back pretty far, but smaller than what you see for most of the other lots that are out there, so kind of confined in terms of the space it has. The existing site has an approximately 1,400 square foot building. There's a canopy attached to it with a small drive-through that was part of the Brown's Chicken. There's also a small storage shed that's on the south property line, and then a dumpster enclosure that's fairly worn on the west side as well, the southwest corner of the property. Most of the site is obviously pavement and impervious surface, as you can see on the aerial. There's kind of a small portion on the south side that's got a little bit of grass area, but that's actually a fairly steep slope down to the parking lot that connects to Menard. So there's not too much room to expand here because there's actually a pretty big grade difference there to the south. The sidewalk was installed in 2019 as part of the village's sidewalk gap program. So that sidewalk here is fairly new and connects into the surrounding area where there wasn't a sidewalk previously. So the site is zoned B3, and to the east of this is another B3 zoning. There's a multi-tenant building that actually has an apartment in it that came here in 2018 for an approval. And then the Aurelio's is to the east as well. To the north of this is B3, which is Delta Sonic, gas station and car wash. And then to the south and to the west of this is B2, which is our community shopping district, and that has Golden Corral as well as Menards or the Town Shopping Center that's there. To the northeast of this is the Shell gas station, which is in the city of Oak Forest. It has a similar B2, B3 zoning, not the exact same as the villages. It's in the Oak Forest, but it's very similar to our B2 and B3 zoning there as well. So the proposed use is Smoothie King. If you haven't been to one, they're kind of popping up all over the place. And there's the nearest ones, I believe, are in Mokina. There's one in Orland Park. And the petitioner is operated a number of these, I believe, 7 currently.
Yeah, 7 currently, and then counting this one, we have 3 other that are on development right now.
Okay. Yeah, so 7, 3 under development, and I think in your narrative, you noted working towards having 20 locations by 2023. So even beyond the petitioner, who's a franchisee for Smoothie King, there's even more in the Chicagoland, and more than 1,000 locations nationwide. So it's really the name kind of says it all. It's pretty focused on smoothies, so they do have some prepackaged food goods, but they have a pretty extensive selection of smoothies, dessert, meal replacement, energy, metabolism, whatever you're looking for. They usually have a smoothie kind of geared towards that. So there's not really too much hot food or anything. So sometimes, obviously even Dunkin' Donuts, Starbucks, those have evolved over the years from donuts and coffee to now they have a full menu. But Smoothie King's really stuck to smoothies. It is kind of their bread and butter, and stick with that. There is a drive-through proposed here at this location that doesn't exist on everyone, but is obviously a preference with the pandemic and the way, I think it was a preference before the pandemic, but now it's really kind of become a necessity. So that's kind of what drew the petitioner to this location, was its ability to kind of have that standalone building with the drive-through attached to it. It'll have a dual-lane drive-through, and we'll get into kind of the stacking and drive-through operation in a little bit. The restaurants with drive-through facilities are permitted uses in the P3, so this is a permitted use. We're really reviewing the site plan for the drive-through side of this. So if somebody adds or expands or goes into a drive-through, they're required to go through the site plan approval, really to make sure it works. I don't think Starbucks would work at this location, but as we'll get into,
Back
I
up.
think it's a good fit for Smoothie King, or if it was like a small sandwich shop or something, that could work. But there's obviously, we don't want to see traffic spill out onto properties. There is just kind of an example internal layout, so that's not their building plans, it's not their final approval, but gives you an idea of kind of how they're gonna lay out that space for operation with the drive-through, a small amount of seating and some waiting area in there. The site plan includes the principal building. They're kind of being rebuilt, again, using that existing foundation. So that's a fairly set part of this site plan. And then the circulation here has kind of changed to a one-way counterclockwise circulation through the site, and that's really to help fit in everything that they're putting on this site, including the dual lane drive-through, parking, and some landscaping as well to really help brighten up the site and brighten up that corner. So they're removing that shed that's out there, so that'll be gone, and then replacing the dumpster with a new dumpster that will match the building's exterior as well. And again, this is fairly defined. There's really not any room to expand this. Potentially, there would be to the south if you bought that property from Menards, but there's a fairly decent grade difference there, so not really too feasible there. Our first open item is really just to review that overall site plan layout and have you guys think about that, if you see any issues related to the overall site plan. Staff has got one suggestion here relating to adding an end island that's shown on your screen. This would kind of serve a few purposes, and one is we'd like to have kind of any undefined pavement areas, have landscaping or curbing, just kind of helps direct traffic through the site. This also helps protect the vehicles that are going to be parking on that south row of the building, so you can't have a car drive into the site, drive straight into the side of a car. It also kind of helps direct traffic in the right direction here. So with the one-way circulation, it can get tricky when you have entrances that are full access entrances. You have to have signage and really design the site to feel like it's one-way circulation. Because if you, I'm sure everybody's been in a site where somebody's driving the wrong way. The weird setup by TGI Fridays and Panera is the one that always gets me, is people always driving, you have 2 lanes separated and people always drive the wrong way. So that's what we're trying to avoid.
I feel
is-
attacked.
Yeah,
I'm
I've seen people be very sorry about it, but it's one of those, if it's not natural, it can happen. So we try and force people to do it the right way. So that would not only help people direct people in the right direction, it also gives a spot for another sign to kind of reinforce that. So striping's nice, but we live in Chicago, so you get snow and salt and everything else, you can't really see that. So we try and focus on the signage as well. And then lastly, but also nicely, it adds another spot for a tree or landscaping there to kind of keep that entrance looking nice. So that's staff recommendation there for, again, that sign and that island. The other recommendation is for a sidewalk connection into the site, which is required by the state's accessibility code. So we've kind of recommended the easiest solution is just to actually add a quick connection. There's an aisle there for the ADA space that they can kind of use as a connection into the site that would have an accessible path to the entrance of the building as well. So we're recommending that small addition as well. Lastly is for the site plan, there's no dumpster enclosure details were really included other than a note saying it's going to match. So staff's either recommended that they include details or that we can move on without that, and we've done that on other projects, but at least have that as a condition, that have matching materials to the building. And usually makes it look nice out there, and carry forward regardless of who that tenant is. So. And then lastly, kind of with all of our projects now, you have our nice engineering condition, that they can kind of look at the curbing that's being put in, the building foundation. There's still some stuff that has to be worked out there with final engineering. Landscaping side of this, or our landscape code, for those of you that have been on the commission that we've done some recent redevelopments, it's tough. Our landscape ordinance really is meant for like a new development. And it works really well for those. It doesn't work so well for redevelopments or infill sites, because we're pretty constrained here. So if you followed our landscape ordinance on this site, I think it would be a nice little park out there, but you wouldn't have much else. So we kind of try and meet the intent of it where we can, have them maximize kind of the entrances, the frontages, the exterior perimeter of it, make it look nice, is I guess the point, and put landscaping where we can find spaces. So we've kind of maximized that here, and added some trees along the frontages, and especially in the back where there's some extra space. But part of the goal too is to obviously not have so many trees and so much landscaping. It really buffers the view of the building. So they've kind of selected where they put those to still make sure they have some views to the building, the site, and the signage that'll be out there. So they've also included landscaping around the base of the ground sign and then the dumpster enclosure as well to kind of brighten those areas up. So that's our other open item, is to review just generally the landscape plan in terms of its conformance. The landscape ordinance, it's pretty much one big waiver, because again, there's a lot there that doesn't meet code, just because you can't do that without almost filling that site with landscaping. Architecturally, so this is essentially a new building that they'll be putting up here outside of the foundation. They've primarily used kind of a tan face brick, and we do have samples here of the materials. And that's gonna be about 72% of the exterior. There's kind of a limestone wainscot, which is the one that's hot on this table at the very top and is very heavy, otherwise I pass it around. But that is about 8% of the exterior, and that's included on the base of the building, as well as then kind of the top trim of the building. They'll tie those in with kind of a flat-faced limestone material. And then there is an aluminum kind of metal front architectural treatment here, which is, the petitioner originally had one example without it, and that would have 100% met our code, but had shown us an example of one with this on it. Staff's preference was actually for this. It gives it kind of a little bit more modern feel, a nice pop for the entrance, rather than, you can kind of see the example here of just the brick without that. Really felt kind of flat. It's a smaller building, so it's a little tough to do too much with it and not make it look really busy really quickly. But that, we thought, looked pretty well. That is about 18% of the building. So they do have a variation for the materials, because there actually is a requirement that they can only use 15%. We didn't originally feel the need to have them make that change. It's a little bit of a generic number we had to pick, right? We just had to pick something that seemed like it wasn't, you can't build an entire building out of that, but had to land somewhere. If the commission does feel that that's a variation they don't want to consider, they could potentially bring that down lower, in line with the roof. But the extension above it gives it a little bit more dimension, I think, and kind of helps screen everything up there as well from the roadway. So again, they can change that. We kind of felt like it was, that we'd bring that forward to you guys though, and see if you had any opposition to that. And it's a little bit unique, so they don't really have, I don't think, a current Smoothie King with that on it, but an example the petitioner gave me was Taco Bell, the kind of newer Taco Bells, which I haven't seen one out here, but they kind of have similar wrap, so I found a picture of one that's in their packets and on the screen. Kind of the aluminum wrap there on the top. The last part about the architecture that's kind of open, I guess we have them carry the canopy around the building as well, over the windows on both sides. And then we were kind of looking to see if there's something they could do to help the facade on kind of the north and south sides that was fairly, it's a smaller building, but was mostly brick. So we were trying to find something, give it a little dimension or intrigue, so they kind of have the 2-inch insets that look a little bit kind of like your bricked windows. Staff's a little, I guess, indifferent about it, if that's maybe the right solution, or if they go back to the wall. So that's an open item we're looking for some feedback on. If you guys kind of have a preference between the two. The signage also, if you picture the signage kind of on there, helps break up that wall too. But those will be two fairly visible frontages. So one faces 159th, one's actually faces the parking lot from Menards, but it's still fairly visible from Oak Park Avenue. So, or if you guys also have any other suggestions of something there, again, it's kind of hard on a smaller building to do too much. It's also kind of some back of house areas, so it might be nice to have windows the whole way, but if you have windows everywhere, you don't have anywhere to put your kitchen or bathrooms or garbage. So some of that's dictated by kind of that interior layout as well. So, from the signage perspective, so they have a couple variations they're asking for on this. There is a requirement for one wall sign basically per frontage, and then it's 1 square foot per lineal foot of frontage of that elevation. You can have a sign that big for it. So if you have a 50-foot frontage, you can have a 50 square foot sign. So they've requested on the north and east sides of this building to have 2 signs each, one that faces Oak Park Avenue, that's kind of their main entrance, and is the smaller part of the building, and then the one facing the north side facing 159. So those variations are on the chart here, request for 1 additional sign on each side, and then additional square footage as well, from what's permitted. And that's really with a smaller building on this site, it's a little bit, if you shrink those, so if you only had like a 28.5 square foot sign on that east elevation, it might actually look fairly out of scale. So they've scaled it a little bit more to the building and thought less of exactly what the code wants. It was looking a little more for aesthetics, so, and kind of how it fits within that building design. Here's there'll be a wall sign on the south elevation as well, just the Smoothie King crown logo, and that actually complies with code, so that'll be permitted. For the ground sign, they'll be removing the existing kind of pylon full sign out there that's fairly unattractive and pretty close to some electric wires. So that'll get removed, and they're replacing that with a little shorter, kind of more standard monument sign. They are requesting relief for a setback variation. So we didn't see one for that old Brown's Chicken sign, and that might have actually existed with the gas station before it. So that might have actually been annexed into the village with that sign. So it's obviously a tight site, so pushing the sign back 10 feet actually starts putting it into the drive aisle. So they've actually requested 2 feet. That's kind of the minimum from a staff perspective we like to see. That gives a little bit of distance to make sure there's no contact by pedestrians, vehicles, anything like that. And the the sight lines for this, it'll be a smaller sign, and there's not really any sight line issues for that intersection there. The accessory signs, so they'll have drive-through signage. That will meet code with the passage of the other item we have coming up here, which is some changes to the sign code that'll allow for a second menu board sign. That preview menu board we talked about, that will make their drive-through signage permitted. They do have accessory signs on the plan though, and we've recommended that those comply with our code requirements. So we have a 4-foot height requirement, and they have it currently at 58 inches for the directional signage. So we'd like to see that revised. And then also that they use MUTCD signage for directional signage and not the illuminated signage. So that's more like your standard, it says like one way, or a stop sign is an MUTCD sign. So those are ones that meet a certain standard and that are kind of universal throughout the nation and even internationally. People see them and they know what they mean. So we like to have those because they're more noticeable, people understand what they are, and they're enforceable too. So. Drive-through and parking. So the drive-through has specifically 9 dedicated stacking spaces there. So you have 4 from the ordering boards. So there's 2 at each ordering board, and then 5 between those menu boards in the pickup window. So you'll have 9 total within that drive-through. There's space beyond that though. There's up to 3 more cars could stack going to the south. So you can almost get up to 12 vehicles there without it blocking any drive aisles, without it spilling off site. So that's a fairly decent number. It's actually more than our McDonald's has, I think. So it's actually a good amount. They have a fairly unique concept here. They do make all their smoothies to order, but they're fairly quick to make compared to some hot food. So Culver's might take 4 minutes, but this can be done fairly quickly. It's also a fairly high turnover there, so they do get people just kind of coming in and out. And then their pre-orders have picked up as well. So many of the people that'll actually be using the drive-through could have already placed their order, and will just be driving through saying pre-order for X, and they can pick it up. And I'll leave it up to the petitioner to maybe explain that a little bit more and how they plan to operate the actual drive-through side of this. So again, limited food options and a little bit faster drive-through service than I think you'd get at even a coffee shop these days. So. And that kind of leads into the parking as well. So there's 19 parking stalls out there now, and that's because pretty much the entire site is, other than the building, is paved parking. So with their adjustments of the lane, the landscaping, the other improvements that are out there, they are proposing 10 parking stalls. And our zoning code, which isn't perfect on this because this is kind of a unique use. You got to drive through a primarily takeout business, but also some seats inside. So we kind of had to do the estimate, and that came up to 12 stalls. So they're asking for a variation for 2 parking stalls on the site. And again, quick turnaround, including for people that come in and out. So similar to like a gas station, you have people running in and running out. There's not too many people staying here on the site. Like a retail space has somebody going into Burlington Coat Factory is going to be there much longer and take up a stall much longer period of time. So, and kind of our usual soapbox is that minimum parking requirements are in art more than a science, and it really relates a lot to the business operations. The main thing we're looking for is, does it have a reasonable amount of parking? Are there any negative effects if there's a residential neighborhood nearby or something like that, where parking could spill into? That could be a problem. But here it's surrounded by commercial, there's no on-street parking. So it's fairly secluded to that site, and really, if there wasn't enough parking, it'd be more to the detriment of the operator than anything. If there's not enough parking, somebody will probably just keep driving. So that's an open item, just to review that variation request for 2 stalls. Lastly is a lack of a photometric plan or cut sheets for the lighting that's out there. New lighting's indicated on the site plan in a few locations for the parking lot, but we'd like to see a photometric plan showing the lighting meeting our code, and then also what the fixtures will look like. I think it's possible they actually need less lights than are indicated on that site plan, so there's street lights out there already. It's actually, I don't think there's almost any lighting on the site now, and if you're out there at night, you're still pretty illuminated. So they have a lot of parking lot lights. They may actually need to do less of those once they kind of run the photometrics. So we're just looking for those updated plans. And that's all I have. There's 5 variations that'll be requested at the public hearing. In addition, there's site plan and architectural approval. So those are kind of what you're approving, the overall site plan, and then these 5 variation requests. The petitioner is Parth, and he's here as well. If you guys have any questions, I think he might be a little better explaining the Smoothie King business plan. But,
Okay, thank you. Is it better if I go one by one through everybody for questions and comments?
For this one, you might, because it's just a workshop and it's new, so you might want to call each
Okay, well,
person.
we'll start to my right. Commissioner Gatto, do you have any questions or comments?
No, it looks great. I'm happy to see somebody wants to develop that land and kind of clean it up and redo everything over there. So I think it'll be a great attribute to that corner, so.
No, I just want to, echo Commissioner Gatto's, comments, that corner really needs some, to be revitalized, and then just the landscape plans, and be just adding that, is fantastic, and then now adding your, and I'm glad that you selected Tinley Park to place this business, I think it'll do great. The site plan circulation, I think, it's gonna work, because obviously people coming off 159th, do the little, into the stacking would be good, and then people coming from Oak Park Avenue, I think that circulation's, good, and then having that, the angle parking, just to confirm that, this is a one-way, hopefully people will see that, and also, including the sign saying one way, so it's just kind of, visually, it's gonna work, and, but yeah, those are my comments, but it looks good.
You know what, I have one more too. I also agree with the exterior, the metal accent panel, giving it dimension. I like that look, so I think that's good. Instead, I don't like all the brick, I like that being broken up a little bit.
Kind of makes the signage stand out more.
Yeah,
than just
yep.
straight brick.
Commissioner Maynard, did you have anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay.
Nothing from me.
All good, thank you.
Okay. The only thing I'll add, I will echo what Commissioner Gatto said. I really do like the metal, the 15 to 18% shift. That is insignificant, and I think the renderings look really good, especially with the contrast between the sign and the metal on it. I did have one question for staff, and I meant to drive up and look. Does that parking lot actually connect into the parking lot of Menards and the Dance Academy? There's like a little wall there, almost? Okay.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it's separated.
Separated.
I would have loved to have cross-access and push for it here, especially to the Menards.
But there's an
site.
elevation.
But there's quite an elevation change, so you'd
I was
almost
just
need
curious.
Menards to do
Yeah.
some of that stuff. We'd like to push for that, but I think this isn't the one, unfortunately.
And frankly, I'm not worried about the parking issue simply because it does sound like a majority of the businesses drive through, and it's a quick throughput, so I don't think that's gonna cause any concerns at that corner. So that's all we've got, yes?
If you want to introduce yourself for just,
Yeah, so my name's Park Patel. I actually grew up in Blue Island, so I've seen this brown chicken since I was probably 16 and able to drive. So, and then basically as far as other locations in the area, I have a store in Chicago Ridge, Crestwood, Plainfield, and Shorewood. We're planning to do hopefully 2 in Tinley, one further south towards 183rd in Harlem, and then we were trying to be at the corner of 159th in Harlem, but there's a lot going on over there, so we couldn't find anything. As far as specifics for the site, I know there was a articulation question as far as, the building not being the same for too long. I did check your code, it says it's 100 feet is where you usually need it, but we're still gonna go ahead and do the insets because we're doing the same thing in Munster and LaPorte because it helps differentiate it, and sometimes if there's like a promotional smoothie on the window side, in that inset, we would have like a poster or something like that. Plus the side that's gonna be facing 159th, you're gonna have 2 menu boards, plus you're gonna have landscaping that's gonna screen at least 4 to 5 feet up from the building, so you're not really gonna see a lot of that continuous brick. I did double check with my architect on that island that you guys were proposing. The only thing we could do is like a 2-foot curb, because we wanna maintain that 24-foot clearance for the bi-directional. Cause currently it sounds like you guys are focused on people coming into the site, but you gotta realize the people exiting that drive-through are gonna be coming out onto Oak Park. Some people might go back onto 159th if they're leaving on 159th, but we don't wanna make it more difficult to have crossing traffic if somebody's trying to enter the site and exit the site on the Oak Park side. So we could add the 2-foot curb, that'll help basically, how you were saying, if there's snow and, protecting that car in that last spot, we could put a 2-foot curb there, but if we do a full-blown landscaping island, that clearance turns to about 19 feet, and it makes it kind of tight for 2 cars to get into there. So,
well, and something would be better than
right,
nothing
right.
there, right? Just to protect the
That's what
cars,
we-
and I think that's an important spot to have a one-way sign there. Cause if
The
you
other
set
thing-
it too far back, then they've
Yeah,
already.
because the other thing we thought about, it's like, we just put a sign on a bollard, and we're like, well, that's not gonna look too good, and 9 times out of 10, somebody's probably gonna clip it.
Yeah.
So we're probably better off putting a full-blown island, so we'll just have to put a smaller island there, that's all.
Yeah, the bollards usually aren't the best. Usually if there's a bollard, it means something wasn't designed correctly,
Correct,
so.
it's like we're trying
Cause
to
you're,
prevent a mistake.
you're trying to avoid someone hitting something and then causing vehicle damage. It is the opposite result, so, yeah, if we can get something in there, I think that's mainly what we were looking for.
And then as far as the operations go, everyone's correct in their assumptions, it's mostly carryout, you're talking 90 to 95% carryout. The people that come in and sit down are maybe some teenagers every now and then, but the majority of the people, they're either getting this on their way to work or after their workout. It's not something where people are just gonna congregate and hang out for, if that makes sense. And this is gonna be one of the first smoothie things that has a double drive-through. Most of them only have one, so we're technically gonna double our efficiency about serving customers. And they are gonna be digital menu boards, so the option that we do have is, let's say we're a little short-staffed, right now it's a little tough to have people. We can make one just be a drive-through, and we can designate the other one to just be online orders only. So people that place an order online, they wouldn't even have to come into the store, they'd be able to come into the lane and cut into the drive-through lane, and we'd be able to serve both customers literally through the one window. So we're going digital to help us give us that maneuverability to switch between things if we have to. So it is one of the first smoothie things that one has this brick and metal look and has the double drive-through. Because traditionally they're prototypical building design. I think Dan's seen it. It's usually fiber cement boards and then mostly just block that they paint. So this is a more modern building that we're actually gonna be developing on this site.
Great, thank you. Do we need to formally close the workshop?
Nope.
Nope, okay.
So if nobody has any other questions, this goes to the next plan commission meeting for the public hearing. So that'll be, August 19th is the official public hearing for that.
Okay.
So-
And then, should I touch base with you as far as getting the notices out? Because you guys said that you guys will handle those and I just pick them up and send them out, correct?
No.
Or will you give me an address?
No,
and
we-
I'll send them out?
We send them out, we do it all.
Oh, okay,
I think we already did it, right? Yeah, it's all done.
okay.
So-
And then the photometrics, I might have something for you by the end of next week. We weren't too sure, so the architect just put something on because it was too short of a period to get everything
Sure.
in for this date. But we're gonna wait for those numbers to come in, and more than likely, we'll probably put what we're putting in Munster, if that's allowed, which are like those colonial light poles. So not like your crazy street pole, but the one that's like 9 feet tall that has like an ornamental top. So we'll wait and see what the numbers come in at, but those are the same poles that we're using on other sites, so that's what we'll probably.
Sure,
use.
we can take a look, and that's one of those things that if that's still something that's open at the public hearing or something like that, we can just condition that approval, I think. Typically, the plan commission's been okay with that, as long as, that's one of those things we can condition. So we can look at the poll. We do have some standards for like not seeing the lens and stuff, so we'll just have to look at what the lens look like. But-
Okay, cool.
Great,
Okay.
thanks, everyone. Moving on to item number 4, the public hearing for the text amendment on
Yeah.
adult use recreational cannabis dispensary location changes. I have notice here, publication of, notice of the public hearing. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Gatto, seconded by Commissioner Gaskell. Staff, do you have a report?
Yes. I won't go through all the stuff we did last time. I'll just touch on the kind of main concerns that I heard from the Plan Commission was really related to multi-tenant sites, odor and lines there. So we did dig in and do some research. In the staff report, there's a fairly long list of there's a pretty long list of other sites that have, in towns that allow them in multi-tenant buildings. So actually, most towns I talk to allow them. Those are everything from the one in Mokina to the kind of two that I have up here is one that's in Schaumburg, that's actually next to a Mod Pizza restaurant. And then there's actually one in Arlington Heights in a strip center attached to a Jewel Osco. So they're even in kind of your traditional multi-tenant buildings out there. So we looked into it. So there's a requirement for them to submit air ventilation and filtration requirements as part of their state approvals. We've doubled down and added that into our standards. So the drafted ordinance would add that basically when someone submits for a special use or approval, they'd have to submit that information to you guys as well. So we'll double check it. We did check though on some of these existing sites, so specifically Schaumburg and Homewood said they have not had any complaints about smell from the tenants that are within those buildings. So some of this, when I talked to them, and it seemed like Kayla, you had a bad experience of there was smells traveling. It sounds like the requirements for this air
isolated.
ventilation kicked in with recreational, didn't exist for medical. So
Yeah, makes sense.
an existing site in an old building that was medical probably didn't have these same standards. But going forward, they're looking at that, and it seems like with the HIPAA air filters, those tend to work. So that was a discussion we had with Chief Walsh. He said actually the police department had this problem because they had an evidence locker filled with marijuana and cannabis, and so you could smell it in the police station, which isn't a great thing. So they had installed HIPAA air filters there, and now you can't tell. So it seems like those work if it's done correctly, and just as long as we can get that information when they come in, I think we feel a little more comfortable now having talked to those. I looked at some of more than a few of these locations that are here were listed or had restaurants that were next to them. So I even looked at some of the Google reviews and stuff to see does anyone say their Chipotle smells like marijuana. There wasn't any negative reviews on any of them, so at least from a public standpoint, it didn't seem like it was really all that noticeable either. So yeah, there's a few pictures of them in here. The line side of this, so having talked to Schaumburg and Homewood too, they did say originally there was complaints about lines blocking access and lack of parking. That seems to have faded now, so there's not really too many complaints. It sounds like maybe on the weekends they get some spikes. And even interior designs have gotten a little better now, where there's more space so people can wait inside and everybody doesn't have to wait outside. So with new locations, and as part of the special use, we can look at how many people can you have wait inside? If you need to have people wait outside, where does it happen? Is there a limit we could set to where people can wait at? But it sounds like it's not as big of a deal now. And actually, I was surprised that this was way more than I thought there was out there. So there's, where it used to be, you're gonna pull people from a large area or all over. It's actually a little bit smaller now, because they're fairly close to where you wanna go. So I think it's a little bit less, that initial wave died down. So we did have, here, just the text that includes, we'll add in there to add HVAC and air treatment systems being installed, that being a requirement, and that's listed in an area for submittal requirements. So I don't know if there's any other questions you guys have about that. So that seemed like the main concern coming out of the workshop, though.
Great. Do we have any questions or comments from anybody for staff? No?
No
Okay.
comments.
Can I have somebody, can we move to the next?
Close the, I
Oh.
guess if you guys don't have anything else, there's no standards for text
There's no
amendments,
stand-
so
okay.
you could just close the public hearing.
Okay, can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Gatto, seconded by Commissioner Manny. Can I have somebody please read the recommended motion?
I make a motion to recommend the village board amend various sections of the zoning ordinance to as described in the August 5th, 2021 staff report and draft ordinance to permit adult use cannabis dispensing organizations to be allowed in the following zoning districts as a special use. B1, neighborhood shopping, ORI, office and restricted industrial district. MI, general manufacturing, MU1, Devon Drive overlay district, and Rich Township entertainment and tourism overlay district. In addition to their current allowances. Additionally, the restrictions for location in a standalone single-tenant building and corridor submittal of HVAC and air treatment systems be required with any submittal for special use.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion made by Commissioner Gaskell, seconded by Commissioner Gatto. Staff, can I have a roll, please? Roll call, please.
I can do it. Commissioner Gaskell,
Yes.
Commissioner Gatto,
Yes.
Commissioner Manny,
Yes.
Commissioner Manny-Addis,
Yes.
Chairperson West.
Yes.
And this goes to the village board August 17th for the first reading. Because it's a text amendment, it does first reading, and then the next meeting will be adoption. So,
Great, thank you. Moving on to item number 5, a public hearing on a text amendment related to sign regulation changes. I have the certification of publication right here of notice. Can I please have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Gatto, seconded by Commissioner Gaskell. Staff, do you have a report, please?
So I won't go over this again either. We covered this pretty in detail at the previous workshop meeting, and there wasn't too many concerns, but just as a brief overview, the main thing driving this is the number of requests we had for pre-order preview menu board signs. So that's kind of what drove this, since we had Smoothie King, a Starbucks, and a Popeyes. We had all these coming in, and instead of continuing to take time for variations the plan commission was approving, I thought this was a better use of my time. So There wasn't too many concerns about that. We went into all the previous locations that had been approved, including most recently at the new Starbucks that'll be south of the new 7-Eleven on Harlem Avenue and 171st, as well as Do Right Donuts. So there wasn't too many concerns about that. We're proposing it at a 7-foot maximum height for the sign, which is the same as the normal menu board, and then 15 square feet. So pretty much any of the approvals would meet that, including any of the ones coming forward. Smaller sign, it's just kind of standard practice now in the industry. So, outside of that, then we did do some kind of clarifications we walked through within the sign code. Some of these are clarifications, a couple were kind of over-regulation things that we just were requirements in our code that didn't really lead to any positive outcomes. Just to note, the size restrictions are still there, the requirements kind of to fit the sign within a certain building envelope, and location on the building, so they all have to stay in line, which is a concern Commissioner Manny had about, if they'd be kind of placed throughout the building. So all of those requirements will stay in place, with just a few things loose in there. But then we're also proposing to strengthen our requirements on not interfering with architectural features on the building, which right now is pretty soft language in there, just a recommendation. So this will be if something really interferes with an architectural element, they either can't do it or they'd have to go before you guys to kind of look at the aesthetics. Doesn't make sense. So that's about it. Just those couple minor changes there, and there wasn't too many concerns from the commission otherwise.
Great,
So-
thank you.
Good.
Can I have somebody read the recommended motion, please? Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, close the
Oh,
public hearing.
can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Gaskell, seconded by motion by Commissioner Gatto, seconded by Commissioner Gaskell. Can I have somebody please read the recommended motion?
I make a motion to recommend the village board amend section 9, signage regulations of the zoning ordinance to as described in the August 5th, 2021 staff report, an attached draft ordinance. The proposed text amendment permits additional accessory drive-through signage, eliminates maximum wall sign and letters heights, and various other code clarifications.
So moved. Or second, sorry.
Motion by Commissioner Gaskell, seconded by Commissioner Gatto. Staff, can I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Gaskell,
Yes.
Commissioner Gatto,
Yes.
Commissioner Manny,
Yes.
Commissioner Maniatis,
Yes.
Chairperson West.
Yes.
Same thing, August 17th for that first reading.
Okay, thank you. Staff, did we just receive any public comments, or since there's no members of the public here?
We did not.
And was there anything for the good of the order?
Just really quickly, obviously, I already brought up Plan Commission and ZBA combined, so now you'll start seeing Planning and Zoning Commission and some of those new cases. So again, if you guys have any questions, let me know. I just will say thank you to the zoning board members that left. We're keeping them in mind for obviously open positions here at Planning and Zoning Commission in the future. But want to thank them for their service. And this was really, again, to kind of help expedite things from a staff and process standpoint, and not just have a commission there for a couple small variations. So thanks to them. The Ludkey subdivision variation, the lot subdivision that was a couple thousand square feet too short, that got approved by the village board at the last meeting. And then Pete's was formally approved as well, Pete's Fresh Market and their new building, as well as the incentives attached to that with the village board, so the
Great.
TIF incentives there. And otherwise, there's a lot of stuff moving along, so the Burlington's inching closer to getting done there at Brixmore and the grocer, and doing the site work out there. They are kind of held up with IDOT getting the sidewalk in, so we all love sidewalks on this commission, but that's been held up right now by IDOT, so hopefully we'll work through that. But I do think Burlington's supposed to open here fairly quickly, and then Floor and Decor is turning around fairly quickly and flipping that the current Burlington space to a Floor and Decor. So we've also worked with Hobby Lobby, is going to be freshening up their facade. They're staying, so there was rumors they were leaving for a while, so they're excited to stay though with all those changes happening over there. So yeah, downtown projects are moving as well too.
Great, thank you. Good. Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Manny, seconded by Commissioner Gatto.
Meeting adjourned.
Meeting adjourned, thank you. Mass